Well, hello again. Today is day 91 of the legislative session. Now, I know that a lot of folks are concerned that we've gone past day 90, and I talk about this in the newsletter. When that citizens initiative passed, we had oil at over $100 a barrel, and frankly, not that many challenges going on at that time. And I totally agree. A shorter session is always better. But we have some pretty significant issues this year. We still have some great bills out there with really important policy that need to be addressed. So let me just talk about some of those. Representative Sponholz has a bill that would create more health care cost transparency. So that bill is in the Senate Judiciary Committee right now. I'm a cross-sponsor on it, and I am encouraging that bill to make its way through. We have another bill that is about to be heard on the floor of the Senate, and that would allow the Division of Public Health to actually get some of their costs reimbursed from folks that use public health services. So that's great also. You know, the more we have users of our services paying for those costs or contributing something toward those costs, what the Public Health Division is proposing will not cover the total cost of services, but it will bring in some revenue. We did this a couple years ago with the state park system, and the state park system now is a little bit more than 50% self-supporting, so that's great. There's another bill out there that would put a work requirement for Medicaid beneficiaries. It doesn't look like that one's going to cross the finish line. It's still over here on the Senate side where it was proposed by Senator Kelly, and it would have to move very, very quickly to make it through the House. I just don't think it's going to pass this session, though it is interesting to know that 77% of Alaskans support some kind of work requirement for Medicaid beneficiaries. There's a good bill out there by Representative Tuck that would change our military code for the state militia, and it would not only update the policy but also make the pay catch up with inflation. So that's a good bill that's still waiting to cross the finish line. There's a spending cap bill that is a separate bill. I talk about that, I think, in the newsletter. $4.1 billion spending cap. Looks like that bill won't cross the finish line, but there is that provision in the percent of market value use of the earnings reserve bill. So that policy still could pass. I have two bills that will address the cost of pharmaceuticals, and they are on the verge of passing on the House side, and one has actually come over from the House and is about to pass on the Senate side. So they likely will cross the finish line. So I'm pretty pleased about that. It will help with our pharmacy costs. I've been involved on the committee that has been writing policy for the legislature on appropriate conduct for legislators and staff, and also what constitutes a hostile workplace. So those policies are now completed. They've been sent to the Legislative Council. This is the body of House and Senate members who make policy for the legislature itself. So hopefully those will be approved. This newsletter has another piece about school funding. This particular piece has to do with internet, bolstering our internet support for schools. And it will not only benefit schools, but communities and businesses in rural Alaska as well. So you can read about that in the newsletter. One of the things that I want to make you aware of, when people say we need more funding for classrooms, I agree. In fact, legislators here are very concerned about the amount of funding that we are giving to schools, and yet we don't see it translating down to classrooms. I have teachers saying to me, I'm still buying my own supplies for the classroom because, the school is short on money. And as I talk with principals and superintendents, I'm finding that a lot of that money that we appropriate for classrooms is actually getting drained away in work comp costs. So folks injured at work in schools perhaps working in the cafeteria or maintenance or janitorial. There is no cap on medical costs for the first 2 years. The employer, who in this case is a school district, has no jurisdiction over the treatment that's being given to their employee. And in addition, if the employee contests the settlement of their injury, they can hire a lawyer. There is no cap on lawyers' fees. This money is being drained out of classrooms. And I have a bill to correct this. I'm hoping perhaps next year we can make some progress on that one. Some folks don't realize it, but our healthcare costs here in Alaska are so high that even the labor unions are sending their beneficiaries to the lower 48 for major health care. So that just shows you how it's affecting everyone. In fact, today in Modern Healthcare, it's a pretty widely read publication on healthcare, they have an article about how hospital price growth has been 30% over the last year. So the costs of hospitals making up 30% of the nation's healthcare costs. We already know that prescription price or spending makes up another 20% of the cost. And this article calls out that spending on physicians and clinical services now makes up another 20% of the nation's healthcare spending. So you can see we need to really ramp that back. Last of all, I want to leave you with a quotation from Benjamin Franklin. Again, back to the 90-day session. There are 60 of us here. And for a bill to pass, it has to be agreed upon by 21 House members, 11 senators, and then we need one governor who will sign the bill. So that's a pretty large number of people. This is what Ben Franklin said: when you assemble a number of men to have the advantage of their joint wisdom, you inevitably assemble with those men all their prejudices, their passions, their errors of opinion, their local interests, and their selfish views. From such an assembly, can a perfect production be expected? It therefore astonishes me, sir, to find this system approaching so near to perfection as it does. So that's a quote from Benjamin Franklin. And it is a rigorous process to get policies and budgets changed here with 60 legislators. So just wanted to share that with you as you think about why we're going over the 90-day session. This will be the last video that I do. My staff, 2 of my 3 staff members are going back to their home bases. So Kari, who answers the phone here in my office, will be back in Anchorage in the next couple days, and that office will be functional again. So when you call, you'll still be talking to Kari, but she'll be in Anchorage. So thanks very much for listening, and keep watching for our newsletters. I send them out pretty frequently, actually, as we draw near the end of session, because I want you to know what we're doing as soon as we do it. Thanks very much.